interesting because, and once again, I mean, you know all about this stuff because back in those days, like the Monday Night War was a real thing, and it's been kind of legendized now, and people talk about the Monday Night War, but when we were in the middle of it, it was the real deal. So I went to WCW in '96 basically because WWE wasn't calling me. I didn't have anything, any type of interaction with WWF, but that's where I always wanted to go because once again, growing up in Winnipeg, it was a WWE territory. It was AWA and then switched over to WWE. So I hardly ever saw you wrestle. NWA never, because we never got it in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
The only way I could ever see that was looking at the aftermags. So to me, WCW, I was giving it my all, but I always had my eye on going to WWE. And then you know how WCW was. You didn't really get as much of a chance as you could because it was just the way it was. Certain things were done certain ways, and that was fine. But I actually went. I had a friend of mine. His name was Don Tallis. He was working in the WWF as the Jackal. It was like a manager, and he was also working a little bit in the office. So he worked very closely with Vince Russo, and Vince Russo said, "Listen, that Jericho guy, we really want him to come to work for us. So if you have any connection with him, let him know that we're looking to talk to him." So Don told me that. This was the Christmas time of '98, and I was under contract until the following August of '99. So it was about 10 months out. And we had a Nitro in Chicago at the United Center, and then the next day I flew from Chicago to New York City in a secret meeting. It was like a secret under-the-covers meeting where I was picked up by Vince's limousine driver, his name was Tommy, and there was a sign that he had that said, like, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
And that was my kayfabe name, was Johnson, because they didn't want anybody to know that I was getting picked up to go to Vince's house to have this meeting. And I'm under contract at WCW, okay? So I go to Vince's house in Connecticut. It's the only time I've ever been there. And I knock on the door, and Shane McMahon opens the door, and he's like, "Hey, Chris, how are you?" And I go inside, and sitting at a table, it's Vince, Shane, Bruce Pritchard, Russo, Jim Ross, and that other cat, I think his name is Ed, another writer guy. Mm-hmm. And they were having a booking meeting to discuss that week's Raw. And they invited me to sit down with them. Okay? So think about how crazy it is. I'm under contract with WCW, sitting down at a meeting, a booking meeting for next week's Raw at Vince McMahon's house. Right? So just imagine me, like I'm 27 years old, not knowing what the hell is going on, and just like, why am I here? Like I thought I was just coming to have a meeting with Vince, and now I'm sitting at a booking meeting. And then they're asking my opinion. What do we think D'Lo Brown should go over this? What do you think, Chris? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Okay. And then they ordered lunch, and I remember I got a roast beef sandwich because Vince told me, the roast beef is good. So I said, well, I'll have a roast beef sandwich then, Vince. And they were eating lunch while they're writing the freaking show for Raw that week.
Yeah.
So just like that would never happen again. And I'm still not completely sure why it happened then. I did ask Vince about it years later, and he said, well, I wanted to see if I could trust you. I wanted to see if I could bring you in here and have this booking meeting and see if it would get out the next day. And when I knew I could trust you, that's when I really wanted you to come work for me. So that was kind of how it all started. But that would never happen these days. It would never happen again.
Yeah.
But at the time, that's